What you know, alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Tuesday, December 16th. We're going to dive into the murders of Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner. Such a crazy and horrific case. And at the end of the day, if you shed away the fact that Rob Reiner is who he is and Michele Singer was who she was in the Hollywood industry, unfortunately, this is a tragic tale that millions of Americans deal with on a daily basis, which is having a loved one struggle with addiction and mental health issues. Not only that, but these murders were domestic violence. And that's something that unfortunately we report on way too often here. It just tends to get a lot more publicity when it is somebody famous, but no less tragic. Rob Reiner and his wife Michele were found murdered in their home. The LAPD received a call at 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, December 14th for medical aid, but soon after, the LAPD Robbery and Homicide Division were called to the home for a death investigation. They confirmed the couple was stabbed to death, while other reports are saying their throats were slit. Investigators believe they were either killed Saturday night or Sunday, and as we know, their troubled son, Nick Reiner, has been arrested. Their daughter, Rami, found the bodies, and according to TMZ, she told police Nick had been living with his parents and was dangerous. She said he should be considered a suspect. So right off the bat, she had a good idea of who would have done this. Now, Rob's family issued a statement that said, "It is with profound sorrow that we announce the tragic passing of Michele and Rob Reiner. We are heartbroken by this sudden loss, and we ask for privacy during this unbelievably difficult time." Rob and Michele met on the set of Rob's movie When Harry Met Sally. They married in 1989, and at the time of their death, they were married for 36 years. In fact, their relationship changed Rob's mind to have Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan's character end up together. Now, during their marriage, Rob and Michele had 3 children together, Nick, Rami, and Jake. Rob also has a daughter from a previous marriage to Penny Marshall, Tracy Reiner. He adopted her while the two were married, and they maintained a very close relationship. And Tracy has had her own career, being in a ton of movies, including playing Betty Spaghetti in A League of Their Own, which her mother directed. She was also in Apollo 13, That Thing You Do, a lot of really great films. And she said, "I don't know what to say. I'm in shock." She had just seen her father the day before he was killed. Michele was a producer and actress known for the movies Misery, Albert Brooks' Defending My Life, and Mixed Nuts. Rob comes from Hollywood royalty. He is the son of comedian Carl Reiner, who passed away in 2020. And Rob's career in Hollywood began in the 1960s. He and Steve Martin were writing partners on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour that ran from 1968 to 69. He branched out into acting, and during the 70s, he starred as Meathead on the sitcom All in the Family. He was actually chosen over Richard Dreyfuss and Harrison Ford for that role. He won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. That series ran until 1979. He also had small roles on hit shows such as Batman, That Girl, The Beverly Hillbillies, and The Partridge Family. He also went on to write for several shows, including Happy Days. Then he wanted to direct, and his first big hit was This Is Spinal Tap, which is such a great movie. And just recently, he wrapped production and has been promoting Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, which is out now in theaters. He directed huge blockbusters and beloved hits like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, The Princess Bride, and Misery. He also worked with his son Nick on Being Charlie, a family drama that's rooted in autobiography. He has also finished a follow-up to Spinal Tap 2 that will be released next year, where the fictional band and other big names play at Stonehenge. Now, Rob and Michele's son, Nick, who is 32, is believed to have left home after the murders and checked into the Pierside Hotel in Santa Monica around 4 a.m. on Sunday. An eyewitness said that Nick appeared to be tweaking out when he was checking in. The hotel room was said to be covered in blood. When staff went inside to clean, they found the shower was full of blood. There was blood stains on the bed, and the windows had been covered with bed sheets. The LAPD responded to that room Monday, December 15th, and they also interviewed employees there. At some point on Sunday, Nick went to an area near the University of Southern California's campus in University Park. He was arrested Sunday at 9:15 p.m., and he was in the area around a metro station near the campus. That arrest came about 6 hours after the body of his parents were found by his sister Rami, and he is being held without bond. Now, the Los Angeles Police Department's Gang and Narcotics Division posted photos of Nick's arrest on their Facebook page. Those have since been taken down. But at the moment, he is at the Twin Towers Correctional Facility and he is on self-harm watch. In the search for Nick, the LAPD requested the help of the Marshals Apprehension Task Force to help find Nick and assist in his arrest. Nick has had a lot of troubles in his life, including homelessness and drug addiction. Now, there were some reports that Billy Crystal saw the bodies before police arrived. That has been debunked by Billy Crystal's spokesperson, who said he never did see the bodies. Thank goodness for that. Also showing up at the crime scene was Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. And understandably, both he and Billy Crystal look very upset. Now, Rami has an Instagram where you can see cute talks with her dad, and most recently, photos of a family vacation they took at the end of November into the beginning of December. She has photos of her and her dad swimming in the ocean, and she captioned the photo, "Thankful for family, health, and followers of any age." Not long before the murders, Rob, his wife Michele, and Nick all attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night, which was the 13th. Other attendees said Nick seemed out of place. He was dressed in a hoodie while everyone else was dressed in suits and dresses. He also reportedly just roamed around without interacting with many people, and people called his behavior odd. They were said to be freaked out. And a source told People that Nick was acting crazy and was asking everyone there if they were famous. NBC News is reporting that Nick is alleged to have interrupted a conversation with Bill Hader. When Bill Hader told him the conversation was private, Nick appeared to stand still and stare before storming off. While at the party, Nick and his parents got into what's been described as a very loud and heated argument that was overheard by others in attendance. One person said at one point, Rob told Nick his behavior was inappropriate, but they were unsure what the root of the argument was about. Rob and his wife Michele left after that argument, and it's not known exactly when Nick left. This comes on the heels of another loud verbal argument Rob and Nick had a few months ago at a restaurant. Nick started screaming at his dad in front of other customers at a very nice restaurant in the Santa Monica Canyon. A lifelong family friend who lives near the Reiners told the New York Post that Rob and Michele were scared for Nick, and his mental health state was getting worse. He also said at his lowest point, Nick was badly addicted to a combination of opiates and heroin. The neighbor also said Nick was supposedly off drugs, but it seemed clear he was not so much off of drugs. The neighbor also said this is not the first time Nick's been violent, and he mentioned an incident that happened a few years back but did not go into specifics. He said he just never thought it would get to this point. Rob was always heartbroken that Nick could not beat his addiction, and also they had argued about it for years. Now, a security guard that was hired by the Reiners after the Palisades fire said Nick had been living with his parents for at least the past year. And he said you could tell something was a little off with Nick. He also said he was a very strange individual, but he would never expect Nick to do this. And he described Rob and Michele as great, great people. He would see them daily. When they saw him, they would ask if he was okay or if he needed anything like food. He said they were the sweetest people in the world. And on one rainy day, Michele gave him an umbrella because he had left his at home. Another family friend said his parents wanted Nick to get help at a facility, but Nick wanted to get help at home and not go to a treatment facility. A former schoolmate of Nick said he had always been troubled, and when she saw the news that Rob and Michele had been killed, she immediately knew it was Nick. Family sources told TMZ that over the last few months, Michele said they were at their wits' end with Nick's substance abuse and his mental health issues. She felt they had tried everything and just did not know what to do. Nick first got hooked on drugs as a teenager and was frequently in rehab. His first visit to rehab was when he was only 15 years old. His addiction ultimately led to him being homeless, and his relationship with his family got very distant. Now, I've read he's been in rehab anywhere between 17 to 20 times, over the course of the years since his addiction first started. The Daily Mail spoke with a source close to the family who said that Nick was a ticking time bomb after his parents threatened to make him leave their home. Nick appeared on a podcast that's called the Dopey Podcast and recalled that he once destroyed the guest house he was living in on his parents' property while spun out on uppers like cocaine and something else. Nick said he was self-sequestered in the guest house for days on end. His parents told him he needed to leave. So Nick said he started punching things. He told the podcast, "I started with the TV, then I went over to the lamp, and then progressively just everything in the guest house got wrecked." The family friend said that Nick would do meth and not sleep for days. He would have outbursts, punch the walls, break things inside the guest house, and his drug use was apparently getting worse. The family friend said Nick would brag about getting away with everything and said he stole money from his parents for drugs. And he would talk about these things at sobriety meetings and would laugh about it. He ultimately stopped attending the meetings, saying it was too cultish. Page 6 reported that Nick's relationship with his siblings has always been rocky, and that Nick's issues have been so much a part of their life and has especially traumatized Rami over the years. A family friend says that Rob and Michele have always been honest with people about their struggles with Nick, and people who spent time with the family saw it firsthand. A former yoga instructor of Rob and Michele's recalled Nick interrupted pretty much every yoga session for at least 20 minutes or so, and that often included intense screaming. A source told Page 6 that Rami has always been very close with her parents, and watching her parents' pain over Nick has impacted her and the whole family so much. Nick was said to have had serious behavioral issues starting at a young age. During a time of sobriety, Nick and Rob worked together on a project of Nick's called Being Charlie. It's a film that was loosely based on Nick's struggles with addictions and homelessness. Rob directed the film, and Nick wrote the script along with a friend he met in rehab. Rob said in an interview that they butted heads during the writing process, but in the end, he said it helped him to understand Nick more, and it also helped him to be a better father. And Nick said that their bond came as a result of watching his dad in his element, and he said he probably should have stayed quiet and learned from him. He did say they never connected while he was growing up, but making the movie together was a huge turning point in their relationship, and the experience changed everything for them as father and son. Rob said in an interview with Nick they did fight over things regarding the movie, but it actually made the movie better. Eric O'Day was a stuntman on the movie and said that Nick and Rob would argue in front of the cast and crew during filming, and said there was a very noticeable tension between the two while filming. He said you could tell Nick was spoiled and Rob was just sick of his crap. "I just assumed, whether this is correct or not, the kid must be pushing all of his buttons." He said there was hostility between Nick and Rob from the first day on set. But he also said it was clear how much Rob loved Nick despite all the tension. He said Rob was doing this movie for Nick, but it seemed Nick was just unappreciative. In an interview with People magazine back in 2016, Nick opened up about his struggles with addiction and homelessness, which was echoed in that film Being Charlie. He said, "Because of his refusal to go to rehab, I was homeless in Maine, I was homeless in New Jersey, I was homeless in Texas. I spent nights on the street. I spent weeks on the street. It wasn't fun." He was also in and out of homeless shelters. And he told people, "If I wanted to do it my way and not go to the programs they were suggesting, then I had to be homeless." The two did an interview for a YouTube channel called the AOL Build series promoting their film, where Nick said as a kid they really just didn't bond. He said, for instance, Rob liked baseball, which he would watch with his other son, Jake, and Nick would watch basketball. Rob said while he had a lot of experience making movies, when it came to making the movie deeper and better, he actually relied on Nick for giving it the honesty and truth that it has. Going back to when he was homeless, Nick said, "I could have died out there. It's all luck. You roll the dice and hope you make it." Rob said it was very, very hard going through it the first time with these painful, difficult highs and lows, and making the movie dredged all that back up again. And he said rehab works for some people, but it can't work for everybody. Rob told the LA Times back in 2015 that they should have listened to Nick over the professionals when Nick said rehab wasn't working for him. Rob said, "We were desperate, and because the people had diplomas on their wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son." Nick's mom, Michele, added, "We were so influenced by these people. They would tell us Nick's a liar and that he was trying to manipulate us, and we believed them." Nick did say one good thing that came out of rehab was the film. He said, "I got sick of it. I got sick of doing that. I come from a nice family. I'm not supposed to be out there on the streets and in homeless shelters doing all these things." He also said, "I really wasn't sure I wanted to do this," meaning the interview. A person who had just watched the movie walked up to the family expressing his gratitude for the film, saying that he had a niece who was battling addiction and had tried to self-harm several times. He was hoping his wife could see the film and find some comfort in it, to which Rob replied, "Thank you, that's the point." Reiner then told the reporter, "It's for them, but really it's for us." To be honest, by the time we got to the point of making the movie, it didn't matter if we actually did because our relationship had gotten so much closer. Nick said, "I don't know anything, so I'll learn whatever he has to teach me." And when I saw him do that, and it was something that I'm interested in, I was like, wow, he really knows a lot, and it made me feel closer to him, and they tried to get to a better place. Rob said working on the project with Nick made him a better father. He said, "The whole process for me, I can just speak for myself. It did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did. I don't know." Nick said he never thought he'd capitalize on rehab. At the time of this interview, Nick was sober. Back in 2016, he told NPR, "I'm a spoiled, white, rich kid from a Hollywood family. But I think it's even more of a testament to how powerful drugs can be that you don't care about any of that stuff." In another interview the two did from May of 2015, Nick said he's lucky in the sense that his parents care about him. And because of that, he would go out and do drugs and then feel a tremendous amount of guilt because he would think, "They're thinking about me right now. They want me to do good." Nick was a guest on that podcast called Dopey 7 years ago. And it's hosted by Dave Mannheim and Chris O'Connor. Chris sadly passed away in 2018. But Mannheim said Nick wanted to have fun in recovery and wanted to be a writer in the industry, but he sensed Nick felt a lot of pressure being the grandson of Carl Reiner and the son of Rob. A source told the New York Post, "I think Nick really resented his dad or maybe hated himself for not being as talented, prolific, or as beloved as his dad or granddad." The host of the podcast, David Mannheim, said he started using drugs to burn off his privilege, and Nick said, "It's so interesting you brought that up because that's what was my experience. I never wanted to identify with my father, with money, or being judged on any of that stuff. I don't care. It's never done it for me. To brag about that stuff, it makes me uncomfortable." The host introduced Nick on one of the episodes of the show as a bit of a train wreck and a good friend of the show. Nick confirmed he was not sober at the time they recorded this episode. He said he was smoking a little weed, taking a little Adderall, but he was not back on heroin. He did say that a year and a half before he was back on dope and other things, which led to a medical emergency. He told the host, "Long story short, I wound up having a cocaine heart attack. It happened during an intervention as he was flying across the country and he was passed out on the plane. Next thing from there, he went to a detox facility and then to a sober living facility in Maine. He said he was happy for a while there until he got homesick. He said, I just didn't want to be away from home. I just wanted to come back home. I just wanted to get back to my old life, like smoking weed, kind of taking some pills, doing whatever I wanted. I knew if I started to do it back in Maine, I wouldn't really be able to do it right. I knew if I smoked once or if I took one pill, they would send me to some sort of treatment. I saw that happen with a ton of kids there, so I was smart about it. I just stayed sober long enough till I could go home, and I just went home and did it. When asked how things were back at home, he said they were great. His brother had just moved back home, and he said that was pretty cool. At the time, Nick said he was just smoking marijuana and playing basketball. Talking about more harder drugs on the podcast, Nick said he did heroin and pills. He said he craved release and relief, and you don't get that from smoking marijuana. When the host mentioned some movies of Rob's that he loved, Nick replied, it's a paradox. You're seeing how they made everyone happy, and then I'm the one that makes everyone unhappy The question I love to hear is, you come from a background like this. How could you ever get into drugs? It's like, well, gee, I don't even know where to start. But once back in LA, he started writing scripts, but struggled with being productive. He did another episode of the Dopey podcast December 21st, 2018, and said he had been sober for about a week. He said he didn't feel like he needed drugs, and it was the Christmas spirit, and he's feeling it. When Nick first appeared on Dopey, he offered in the middle of their conversation to call his dad and bring him on. But the host said that wasn't necessary. But after their co-host died in 2018, Mannheim was concerned about the future of the podcast and thought having Rob Reiner on could help the show get some recognition. However, when he suggested this to Nick later on in 2018, he said it must have offended Nick. Nick ended their communications at that point and did not respond to what the host estimates were around 150 text messages that he sent to Nick over the course of the next 7 years. Now, back in 2015, Nick founded an environmental nonprofit called Save Malibu, but it didn't last a year. He was last seen together with his family at the premiere of Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues on September 9th. This was at the Egyptian Theater in LA. Now, since his arrest, Nick has retained Alan Jackson as his attorney. A lot of you know, Jackson was a defense attorney for Karen Reed. Nick was scheduled for a court hearing today at 11:30 Pacific, but didn't show since, according to Jackson, he has not been cleared medically yet. Jackson said Nick's first appearance could be as early as tomorrow, but that will be decided on a day-to-day basis. He also would not say who is paying Nick's legal fees. The Los Angeles District Attorney had a press conference today. There's nothing new on the investigation or details about the murder, but they did say Nick will be charged today with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances of multiple murders and using a dangerous and deadly weapon, which would be the knife. The maximum penalties for these charges are life without parole or even the death penalty. There's no decision at this point on whether or not they will seek death. California does have the death penalty for first-degree murder with those special circumstances, which is multiple victims, as is the case here. Any evidence of mental illness will come out in court hearings. However, the defense chooses to do that. The DA said any delays will be the same as any first-degree murder case. Now, I do think this probably will go on a lot longer, as I think competency will play a big issue in this case in general, based on his history. And the coroner is trying to determine a time of death. They do not know if they were killed Saturday or into Sunday, and we know their bodies were found Sunday afternoon. So that's what I've learned today, and just going all over the internet, listening to interviews, reading interviews, and just trying to get a better sense of the struggles that Nick has had and what his parents have had to deal with since he was a very young boy. I will keep my eye out for any updates on the case. If anything pops up, I will do another episode, or if it's something small, I'll do a YouTube short, so don't forget to hit subscribe. By the way, just today, we hit 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, which was such an amazing thing to wake up to. So I appreciate all y'all for being here and trusting me to bring you the latest. But that is it for today. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.